Hi guys, welcome to a new video. I'm very excited to make this video because I think that my testimony regarding how God saved me from the twin flame deception is really going to inspire so many people. I believe it's going to be very impactful. I think there are so many people who are so lost on this journey, and it actually makes sense because I truly believe in the deepest core of my heart that that spiritual attack, encountering a twin flame, is one of the most destructive and also life-changing experience. And without guidance, without real and consistent and true spiritual guidance, so many have lost their lives or even their destiny. So let's start. Those starts obviously with me. I would say that I was born in a very problematic family. I was not necessarily aware of it when I was younger. However, now, after I grew up, obviously, I realized that my parents were definitely two narcissists. I think it was a very dysfunctional household. My mother never really truly loved my dad. And they just didn't give us to me and my siblings, a real, example of what love should be. They never really told me what loyalty was. They never gave me a real example of what true love was, or even what a stable family life should look like. Okay? This means that growing up, I was always, I think, seeking love in the wrong places. I always was dreaming of meeting someone who would love me with intensity and see my value. And I was always craving that growing up. I would also say that I was a very rebellious child, unfortunately, rebellious teenager. And it was all because growing up I had been exposed to the darkness. If the devil attacks you when you're very young, it's because you have a big kingdom assignment, and the devil wants to trap you and take away your destiny and demolish the plans that the Lord has in your life. Okay? This is a very important thing to say because obviously so many of us have gone through childhood trauma, and we ended up being like, oh, why did it happen to me? Why was I exposed to that? Why was I so vulnerable and manipulated, exploited? Why was my innocence taken away from me? Well, let me tell you that it's because we live in a very spiritual world, and there is constant spiritual warfare, unfortunately. And the battle is constant for some of us. So I was exposed to the darkness. This obviously opened me up to the darkness. I was obviously heavily deceived by Satan, and it opened the door of a very great amount of curiosity, but a very I would say demonic curiosity. Growing up, I experienced with drugs like cocaine and MDMA. I would love going to parties. I loved also drinking. I mean, every teenager, I would say. And I also got into some very bad relationships. And unfortunately, I think since my youngest age, 9 years old, I was also heavily interested in astrology. Astrology was introduced to me in a very, innocent way. We had a wide range of books in my home growing up. And unfortunately, without knowing, my parents, gave there were some books on astrology. So I actually delved into that growing up. This was a massive door that was open, an extremely demonic door. And I do recall the fact that when I was in my early 20s, I actually downloaded an app on horoscopes, which was called The Pattern. And this app was prophesying. I don't even know how to say that, but like it was saying that basically I would meet somebody and the relationship would transcend everything which is possible. It would be extremely strong and chaotic. And it basically was like, it was just saying that I would have an encounter that would change my life, basically. That's what it was saying. And I always obviously came into agreement with that. I also started to delve into the new age. I was extremely obviously materialistic. I was chasing the wrong things. I was not seeking first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness. Obviously not. No, I started to delve into, manifestation, the new age. And these doors that I opened are doors that I really, really regret opening, because a few months after dwelling into the new age, obviously at first it was very fun, it was very interesting, it was very cool. I was thinking that I was a god, lower G god. I was very stupid. I wanted to have a successful life. I was very materialistic, and very quickly the devil started to obviously torment me, and I experienced a lot of anxiety. Obviously, I was always thinking positively. That's what they would tell us, obviously, in the new age. Think positively, obviously. Positivity, you attract what you think, whatever nonsense there is in the new age. And it really affected me, okay? Manifesting, also meditating, all of these things really destroyed my mental health. And one day I decided, my goodness, to give my life to Jesus Christ. I kept on watching, YouTube videos on manifestation, and I don't know why, I could sense spiritually and also energetically that there was something wrong about it. And then I think I saw a video of Christians. I was watching it for a few seconds, and I just could sense that Christians, they just had this light, this, I don't know how to explain it. They had this peace that was just incomparable, okay? Now, I gave my life to Christ. I got on my knees and I said that, Lord, I surrender it all at your feet. I am giving my life to you. And unknowingly, obviously, all along my journey, all along life, I had, obviously, as I said, opened so many doors to the darkness. I had opened so many doors to the darkness that I did not realize that the devil would try to make me pay, obviously, for giving my life to Christ. The devil will try everything possible to destroy me. And you know what? One of the craziest things that happened to me straight after giving my life to Christ was that I experienced a physical spiritual attack. Okay, so listen to this. I was in my living room when I gave my life to Christ, and a few minutes after that, the postman rang at my door, okay, because I was taking my time to go downstairs, open the door, and obviously get the letter that he had for me. He rang at my neighbor, okay, so I heard that. So I opened my window to just to speak to him and to tell him to come back to my door. And the moment I did that, a massive spider fell on my head. And the real thing about this is that I have always had a massive phobia of spiders, okay? This massive spider fell on my head. I did not realize it at first. I then I got into my flat, and then a few minutes later I saw it, and I had the most outrageous, the most horrible panic attack. I shouted so loud. I was completely distressed, And I just knew that the devil attacked me. I just knew that the devil obviously sent that thing to obviously to attack me, to make me feel some type of ways, okay? If you have a phobia of spiders, you will understand where I'm coming from, all right? Those that know, okay? So during my journey as a Christian, obviously I took it very seriously, and like step by step, I started to really renounce so many things. I renounced sexual immorality, I renounced weed. I really wanted to live a godly life, okay? I really wanted to really live as a Christian, okay? And it is 1 year after I gave my life to Christ that I had the twin flame encounter. I met the twin flame through a place that I was frequenting a lot. I would always see this person. I would always bump into him. We were always in the same environment, continuously for multiple years. But it started there. I would always see this person, and at first I did not necessarily notice their presence. However, over time I developed a strong curiosity about them, and I started to question myself about them, because they would really stand out. Obviously, if you guys have gone through this experience, you know that like the twin flame really stands out. There is something very familiar, very, very peculiar about them. And I was very observant, okay? At first, I was just observant. I was just observing this stranger who seemed very familiar to me, without any reason. And then what happened is that I started to think about this person more and more and more. And I then had a thought, and I don't know if this was something planted by the enemy. I don't know what was orchestrating that. We all know obviously that there is a very strong pull in this dynamic, and I don't know what is the root of the pull, but it was very strange. Out of nowhere, I really wanted to get closer to this stranger, and it was not a usual dynamic for me, because I don't fall for strangers. I really fall in love with personalities, and I didn't really know this person that much to fall for them. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say. And a thought came, and I was like, oh, maybe I have a crush on him. This is where it all started, okay? So at first it was a lot of curiosity, then I was very observant of them, and then I started to think that I had a crush on them. I don't know, the thought came into my mind. Step by step, the emotions that I would feel towards this person were becoming more and more intense, and it was very abnormal. I just did not understand what was happening to me. I would feel so excited, but there was also such a, I don't know if it was lust, but I just there was an intensity about the dynamic that was very peculiar. What was very fascinating, obviously, is that I realized over time that these emotions that I was feeling for this person were, he was feeling them too. There was a reciprocity, okay? So this is where everything started. It was a very, very intense, but also very short encounter with this person. He was looking at me in a way that nobody ever looked at me before. It was so innocent and intense, and it started really out of the blue. And I was scared, but also extremely excited. I would spend most of my time, most of my days, constantly thinking about this person. And at first, crushes are very exciting. At first, it was just a crush. And I think the love bombing was extremely intense. This person seemed to be obsessed with me. They would look at me like I was the most beautiful person on earth. I was never looked at that way. This person provided me with everything that I needed, literally. The amount of love that that was not love, but the amount of love, care, attention that they were providing me was just like, it was insane. And I felt extremely safe in their presence, but at the same time, there was like some fear associated with everything. So it was extremely complex, and I could not really understand what was going on. He changed something in my reality. He planted a seed. He transformed my entire life. Okay, and I think this is really where idolatry starts, because he consumed me. Okay, I was obsessed, enamored like never before. I adored this person. Everything that they would do, the way that they would move, there was beauty in everything that they would do. And it was very, very concerning. We would always stare at each other very intensely, but I do recall a very paranormal instance. And that paranormal instance started everything. And I believe that this is when the soul tie was formed. Obviously, we all know that soul ties can be created through very intense emotions, okay? I remember that like we were together looking at each other very intensely, and out of nowhere it felt like the world stopped. All the noise, all of the chaos stopped. We were looking at each other, and I think it is at that specific moment that the chakras were opened, the heart chakras. So my heart chakra opened at that specific moment, and straight after that, I experienced the spiritual awakening. Okay, so I was struggling to sleep. I wouldn't sleep at night. The only thing that I would be thinking about was that specific person, and there was like I would feel so many emotions inside of me. There was like so much intensity. At first, it felt really fun and also exciting, because after that specific moment, I was so deeply in love with that person. I was so obsessed with them. I had like an admiration for this person. And after this specific moment, everything changed. A few days after that, I started to feel extremely different. I had straight away the spiritual awakening. It was not, up until now, spiritual awakenings are something that are very complex, because I had multiple. The way I could describe spiritual awakenings is that it's just that I felt different. A new era was starting in my life. I felt different, okay? But it was really the start of my downfall. I was unable to sleep at night. I was heavily sleep deprived, because the only thing that I would think about was this person. I would constantly listen to love songs, and like everything that I would think about was like his eyes and that person. I was completely obsessed. And I repeat, completely, utterly obsessed with this person. And after that moment, the eye contact that we had, okay, the excitement that I would feel, the rush of energy that I would feel before seeing them, just like started to become absolutely abnormal. It was just a little bit, it was too much. You understand? It was too much. I could not sleep. I could not eat. I also could not understand that after such a strong, after a moment of intimacy, someone that I did not really knew that well became my world. Okay, I had no hesitation. I had no hesitation in my mind. They were the one for me, period. Okay. And after this instance, I was definitely questioning myself on how could things happen this fast? And because I was experiencing this very strong intensity before seeing them, this rush of energy that I had never felt before. Obviously, everybody knows, if you have gone through it, you know that when you go through this situation, the emotions are tripled. And I did a prayer. I got on my knees, okay? It was before I was going to see him. And I said to God, Lord, if this person is not meant for me, please remove them from my life. I kid you not, this moment triggered the separation. God clearly said no. And the answer that God gave me did not fit with my expectations. It was against that. So for a very long time, I was fighting against it. I think for 8 months, I was fighting against like what God told me. Okay. I was extremely rebellious, led by my flesh, led by my emotions,